Hey everyone! Before we begin, I just want to say thank you for clicking on my first video game review. I'm still working out the format of all this, so if you can bear with me, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you can leave down any comments on what you want to see or any tips for improvement, I would greatly appreciate that. And with that, thank you again for clicking on the video, and enjoy the review. So, why am I starting with The Witcher 3 for my first review? Well, I'll tell you. It is simply because it was the game I was playing before I started posting to YouTube. Yep, that's the reason. But just because I started the game without the intent of reviewing it, that doesn't mean there's not good things to say about it. So, let's get on with it. Releasing on May 18th, 2015, and the Game of the Year award winner for 2015, The Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt follows Geralt of Rivia as he travels the Northern Realms in search of his adopted daughter, Ciri. But Geralt is not the only one looking for Ciri, as Geralt soon learns that the Wild Hunt is after her. And if the Wild Hunt gets to Ciri before Geralt does, it could mean the end of the world as we know it. The game also has two expansions titled Heart of Stone and Blood and Wine, which serve as one-off stories that take place after the main story. Right off the bat, you can just see how beautiful the game is. For reference, the gameplay captured was from the Complete Edition on the Xbox Series S, and you can see everything from the sunsets, over the hills, the backdrops of castles, tall mountains from the game. All of them are just visually stunning. The NPC models do vary. Texture with a lot of the human enemies you fight have similar faces and clothing, while main characters that you interact with have great texture in their faces and their clothes. The map is easily one of the biggest maps I have ever played. The Northern Realms is made up of 4 main regions you travel throughout the story. Velen is a wasteland that has been torn apart by the war, and you travel around seeing how different villages are affected by it. Novigrad serves as the game's big city location, which gives a little bit of everything that the game has to offer. The Skellige Isles are a series of islands with some Viking spice, where you sail around for a lot of the traversal. And then there's Kaer Morhen, home of the Witchers, where you get to move around a full castle and the grounds around it. There is a 5th region you can fully explore when you play the Blood and Wine expansion, which serves as the game's version of Italy. The game takes roughly about 50 hours to complete, and that's if you don't do the side quests. But believe me, you'll want to do the side quests. The game is so detailed in its storytelling that even the smallest detail that you wouldn't even think twice about will come up later and have either a major impact on the story or add a pretty funny joke to add some levity to a pretty dark game. The game showcases how war destroys everything and how it affects everyday life for those living in the region. The game also touches on racism by showcasing the persecution of witches, elves, dwarves, halflings, or basically anything that's not human. Even then, amongst humans, there's discourse on how people treat others from different regions in the Northern Realms. But even during the intense moments of bloodshed and loss throughout the game, it's actually pretty funny. Throughout the story, the game takes liberty to add a joke ranging from a dark and visual gag to witty remarks from Geralt or a character you're interacting with, and then there's just funny moments of irony to help bring levity to the whole game. As you complete parts of the campaign, you'll get information on what happened to Ciri, which leads to moments in the game when you get to play as Ciri as she's being chased by the Wild Hunt, which is a fun way of showcasing what happened and is a better alternative than just sitting through more dialogue. The game is at its best during the climactic moments of the story, when you get to assemble a group or army of the people you've interacted with throughout the story and get to fight in epic battles where you don't even know who will live or die. And it doesn't just happen at the end of the game. There are several times throughout the game where you get to work with large groups, and it just helps make the game feel bigger in scale. But one of the most important parts of the story is the choices you make. During interactions, you get to choose your responses, questions, and actions. You can even use your Axii sign to essentially do a Jedi mind trick to the person you're talking to. Every choice you make will come back to you at the end, making the game just feel real. Even a decision you thought wouldn't matter comes back later for better or worse. Your choices can quite literally decide who lives or dies. As I said earlier, there are 2 expansion packs that serve as smaller stories that take place after the main story. Heart of Stone has Geralt serve a man who seems to be unkillable in order to complete a debt to a man who saved his life. Blood and Wine takes Geralt to a new region called Toussaint, which is filled with vampires, where Geralt is contracted to kill a mysterious monster who has been killing knights. Both expansions contain the same style of storytelling that helped expand the world, just like the main campaign. The gameplay takes a while to get into, but once you get the hang of dodging and switching your magic abilities on the fly, it becomes incredibly fun and satisfying. Monster fights are interesting because you get to learn what magic abilities, potions, and weapons are more useful against the different types of monster species. But I find the combat against humans to be the most satisfying, with the well-timed blocks and awesome executions that Geralt does against them. Being able to pick your own advancements to improve traits, attacks, and magic signs is a fun way to pick your own playstyle. I definitely recommend getting the Delusion perk early since it can help you avoid a fight if you aren't feeling confident in your combat skills yet, or want to avoid a whole army coming at you, or if you just want to do a Jedi mind trick to someone. Also, gathering a bunch of materials to craft new potions, weapons, and armor helps make the world feel more alive while also aiding you in future fights and adds another form of progression to the game. I previously mentioned that throughout the game there are missions where you get to play as Ciri, and while her basic sword combat is similar to Geralt's, Ciri is just a little quicker with her attacks, and she has a really cool dash ability which feels great and looks amazing in combat. There are also fun mini-games and side quests that you can do around the world. One of the first things you can do is a card game called Gwent, where you play character and environment cards to try and get more points than your opponent, similar to Marvel Snap. You can travel around the map and ask a lot of the shop NPCs or others you interact with to play and try to win new cards. You can also buy new cards to help make your deck stronger. Side note, I suck at Gwent. Another thing you can do is enter a fight club.
You do not talk about Fight Club.
Where you can travel the region as you compete to be the champion of that region. You can also enter horse races where you can earn coins and horse equipment to improve your horse's stats, but there is a problem with that, so let's move into my negatives about the game. And I only really have two major complaints about the game, and even then they're more nitpicks than anything else. The first is that I really don't like the horse controls for the game. The horse controls feel very clunky, and the steering is not easy, which, considering how often you actually have to use your horse, I feel like it needed some fine-tuning. I don't know if there was something that can be adjusted by unlocking new horse gear or anything else, but I did not find any ways to improve the steering during my playthrough. The other issue is some pacing issues that happen throughout the story. I found it more common in the expansions than I did the main story, but the main thing I think would have helped during the dialogue sections where you have to pick one dialogue option over another, but both options end in the same results. I think that the story should have just kept going instead of wasting time making a joke or insulting Geralt. In the end, The Witcher 3 is a phenomenal game with a fantastic story, fun gameplay, some exceptional expansions, and it is easy to see why this game won Game of the Year back in 2015. For The Witcher 3, I give it a 10 out of 10, and it is definitely a must-add to your game library. But that's all I got for The Witcher 3. Let me know what you think about The Witcher 3, and what would be some tips that you would have for a new player to the franchise. This was my first time playing The Witcher 3 or any in the franchise, so let me know if you got any tips or any ideas down below in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.